Her 911 call was a mother's worst nightmare, until detectives realized it was all a lie. What she did to her own toddler next is so depraved, even seasoned investigators were stunned. The truth? She treated her child like garbage. Literally. This is the case that will haunt you forever. On the morning of October 5, 2022, in Savannah, Georgia, the silence that had once meant peace became the chilling void of absence. Quinton Simon, a 20-month-old boy with bright brown eyes and a tender smile, was gone. And the first whisper of suspicion did not fall on strangers or lurking shadows, but on his own mother. The official narrative began with a 911 call, but the truth began unraveling long before the dispatcher picked up. At 9 a.m., Daniel Yoon Kim, Leilani's boyfriend, placed the call, not Leilani herself. He had been at work when she rang him in a panic, claiming Quinton had vanished from his playpen overnight. She said the front door was open when she woke up, wide like an unspoken scream, and that Quinton was nowhere to be found. But Daniel, concerned and alarmed, was the one who dialed emergency services. Officers arrived at the home on Buckhalter Road to find a maze of inconsistencies, a story held together by frayed threads and trembling hands. As the hours passed, what should have been a mother's frantic despair began to feel like something else entirely. Leilani claimed she hadn't seen her son since the night before, but Daniel recalled seeing Quinton around 6 a.m. before leaving for work. The child, he said, had still been in his playpen. So where did the boy go in the hours that followed? The search exploded into motion with urgency and desperation. Law enforcement, the FBI, and K-9 units canvassed the surrounding areas. Helicopters roared overhead. The family's backyard pool was drained. Nearby ponds searched, doors knocked on, yards combed through. The entire city seemed to stop for Quinton. Flyers painted lampposts with his face, describing him in soft, loving detail. A little boy wearing a Sesame Street shirt, black sweatpants, light brown hair, light brown eyes. His youth clung to him like a plea, but every search ended in silence. No footprints, no fibers, no sign. Then came October 11th, and with it a chilling shift. The Chatham County Police Department announced the discovery of new evidence. It was vague and withholding, a public statement crafted with precision. They were now working under the belief that Quinton Simon was no longer alive. And more disturbing still, they named Leilani Simon as their prime suspect. The next day brought not hope, but certainty. Law enforcement confirmed they believed Quinton was dead, and their investigation turned its eyes to a landfill, an unholy grave of rotting trash and broken things. Investigators believed Leilani had placed Quinton in a dumpster after eliminating him, and that the dumpster had been collected and transported to the landfill in Savannah. That belief would launch one of the most gruesome, meticulous searches in the department's history. For weeks, they sifted through mountains of refuse, brick by brick, piece by piece, never losing faith that Quinton would be found. But while others searched, Leilani was seen drinking and laughing. She and her mother, Billie Jo Howell, were spotted at Stingrays on Tybee Island, throwing back shots, loud and carefree, as if the world wasn't burning around them. The optics were unbearable. Protesters gathered outside her home. Social media lit up in rage. And for the public, the absence of an arrest felt like an injustice suspended in limbo. It was then the deeper history of the household unraveled into the light. Quinton had not even been in Leilani's legal custody. Her mother, Billie Jo, had taken that responsibility due to Leilani's history with drugs, legal troubles, and neglect. And yet, on the very day Quinton disappeared, Billie Jo had traveled out of town, leaving Quinton in Leilani's care, an error that would end in a child's death. Leilani's past came roaring back. Eviction notices, drug charges, a documented history of erratic behavior and unstable parenting. Her own mother had filed to remove her and Daniel from the home just weeks before Quinton vanished, following a fight over laundry that ended with police involvement. A few days later, Leilani was handed a court order requiring her to pay child support for Quinton. That was September 26th. 9 days later, Quinton was gone. A video recorded by Leilani months before the tragedy would soon become a ghost in the trial. a 4-minute self-life-taking note filmed from a car, addressed not to her children, but to Daniel. In the video, she sobbed through smeared makeup, crying out that she was unloved, unwanted. She spoke of her children, Quentin, Zane, and Sky, only in passing, more as memories than living souls. She said goodbye. She said she was headed to the river, but she didn't follow through. She came back as if nothing had changed, but something had. Her mind was already unraveling. Authorities confronted Leilani with surveillance footage that placed her at a dumpster site at 1 a.m. on October 5th, just hours before Quentin was reported missing. When asked why she was there, she claimed she had gone to meet a friend named Misty for oral gel, but Misty denied ever seeing her. Leilani's alibi disintegrated, replaced with the harrowing possibility that she had discarded her son under the cover of darkness. Then came the breakthrough. On November 18, 2022, after searching through over 1 million pounds of trash, investigators uncovered a fragment of Quentin Simon's skull. More remains followed. The confirmation was swift and shattering. Quentin was gone, buried among waste, decomposed and discarded by the one person who should have cradled him in life. The trauma of that discovery rippled outward, through the rescue team, through the town, through the nation. 3 days later, Leilani Simon was arrested, charged with malice life-taking, felony life-taking, and 17 other crimes. She was led in handcuffs into a world she would never leave. Her protestations of innocence rang hollow against the weight of evidence. Prosecutors presented surveillance footage, eyewitness testimonies, cell phone data, and her disturbing past. What they lacked in cause of death, they made up for in motive and behavior. They argued that drug use and mental instability had rendered Leilani unfit, and when reality cornered her, she snapped. The courtroom heard from babysitters and neighbors, each testimony a stone in the wall of Leilani's negligence. A teenage babysitter described how Quentin was treated differently than the other children, how he was denied food, how he was left to fall downstairs while his mother watched passively. The boy's laughter was tender and innocent, his love offered freely to all around him. But to Leilani, he was an inconvenience, and no one, not even her own mother, truly defended her character. During the trial, Billy Joe Howell, already devastated, was jailed for contempt of court. It was a family on fire, self-consuming. And yet, even in the heat of testimony, there were no answers clear enough to explain how a child ends up in a landfill. The prosecution didn't pretend to know the exact method. They didn't need to. They only had to convince the jury that Leilani Simon alone was responsible. Eventually, that verdict arrived. Guilty on all counts. Judge Tammy Stokes handed down a life sentence with the possibility of parole after 40 years, along with 10 more years stacked on top. Leilani would begin her life behind bars while still in her 20s. But even in her cell, she claimed innocence, writing letters, filing motions, demanding a new trial. Yet the guilt doesn't stop with her. The public looked hard at Billy Joe Howell, asking why she left Quentin in Leilani's care when she knew the danger. A grandmother entrusted by the court, who then chose to leave town. A mother who admitted to her own failures, who said she had been absent in Leilani's life, too consumed by her own demons to raise her daughter right. The cycle repeated, and Quentin was caught in the center. A confrontation between Billy Joe and babysitter Diana McCarta exposed just how raw the wounds were. The memorial Diana placed for Quentin enraged Billy Joe, who shouted that her baby wasn't dead. They screamed in the driveway, grief curdling into rage. The entire community watched them fall apart on camera. What lay beneath the entire tragedy was the haunting simplicity of a child's life. Quentin Simon wasn't just a headline. He was a boy who loved to run to people with his arms open wide, who said thank you even when he was the one giving, who chased his older brother with laughter in his lungs, who asked for fist bumps and called them booms. He was joy made flesh, and the world was robbed of that joy. The crime didn't just take Quentin. It took trust, safety, and innocence from a whole community. His obituary painted him in colors too bright to fade. He was cherished. He was polite. He was alive, until the very person meant to protect him wrapped him in silence and sent him into the dark. To this day, Leilani Simon remains incarcerated, Her case is closed, her name forever chained to her crime. But the memory that remains isn't of her tears, her lies, or her trial. It's of Quentin, a child who gave love freely and deserved it back tenfold. His story is not one of monsters. It's one of failure, of systems, of families, of hearts grown too cold. And now he is part of a brutal truth, that sometimes the people we should fear most are the ones closest to the crib. What do you think really happened during those final hours before Quentin Simon disappeared? Was it neglect, malice, or something far more chilling? How does a child go from a playpen to a landfill without anyone stopping it? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you believe stories like Quentin's deserve to be heard and remembered, subscribe to the channel, because we uncover the stories others try to bury.